In the year 2147, Earth had changed a lot. Humans were no longer just living on their home planet. They had built colonies on Mars and even on some of the moons of Jupiter. These places were not as comfortable as Earth, but they were safe and growing every day. To protect these faraway settlements and keep order in space, Earth's government created a fleet of ships. These ships were powerful and advanced, armed with weapons and equipped with technology that could explore the stars. The fleet was made up of many vessels, but one of them stood out. It was called the USS Horizon, and its captain was Daniel Carter. Captain Carter was a man who had spent most of his life in space. He was tall, with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. He had seen a lot during his years in the service, dangerous missions, strange discoveries, and moments of great bravery. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen on a quiet day. When the Horizon was patrolling near Saturn, something unusual occurred. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe, the communications officer, was sitting at her station. She was young and smart, always paying close attention to her work. Her job was to listen for any signals coming from space, whether they were friendly or hostile. Most of the time, all she heard was static, a kind of background noise that filled the void between the stars. But today was different. Rachel's screen flickered, and then a faint signal appeared. At first, she thought it might be interference from the ship's systems. But when she checked again, she realized it wasn't. The signal was real, and it was repeating itself. It was weak, like it had traveled an unimaginable distance, but there was no doubt about it. It was deliberate. Someone or something had sent it. Rachel called Captain Carter over immediately. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, her voice steady but curious. Daniel leaned over her shoulder and looked at the data. His brow furrowed as he studied the pattern. It wasn't written in any human language, but it was clear enough to understand. Buried within the strange code was a single phrase, "Help us." Daniel straightened up and looked around the bridge. The rest of the crew was busy with their tasks, unaware of the discovery. He knew he had to act quickly. This could be the most important moment in human history. For centuries, people had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, it seemed they might finally have an answer. But was this a message of peace, or was it a trap? He ordered Rachel to send the signal to Earth right away. Back on the planet, Admiral Karen Walsh was overseeing operations for the entire fleet. When the message reached her, she wasted no time. She gathered her top advisors and military leaders to discuss the situation. The meeting room buzzed with excitement and worry. Some argued that responding to the signal could put humanity in danger. Others believed it was an opportunity too big to ignore. After hours of heated debate, Admiral Walsh made her decision. She would send a small task force to investigate. The USS Horizon would lead the mission, along with 2 other ships for support. Together, they would find out where the signal came from and what it meant. As preparations began, the crew of the Horizon started to feel a mix of emotions. Excitement, fear, and curiosity swirled among them. Dr. LaVara Bennett, the ship's xenobiologist, couldn't contain her enthusiasm. She had spent years studying the possibility of alien life, and now she might actually meet it. Chief Engineer Jack Harper, on the other hand, was more cautious. He knew how fragile their equipment was and how dangerous space could be. Still, he did his best to prepare the ship for whatever lay ahead. Before they left, Admiral Walsh addressed the crew through a video link. "This mission is unlike anything we've ever done before," she said. Her tone was serious but encouraging. "You are representing all of humanity. Whatever you find out there, remember that your actions will shape our future. Stay alert, stay safe, and come back to us." With those words ringing in their ears, the fleet set off toward the source of the signal. The journey would take weeks, maybe even months, depending on how far away it was. During that time, the crew tried to stay focused. They ran drills, checked their equipment, and discussed possible scenarios. What if the signal was a trick? What if the aliens were hostile? No one had answers, but everyone agreed on one thing: they had to be ready for anything. As the days passed, the tension grew thicker. Captain Carter spent long hours in his quarters thinking about the mission. He knew the risks involved, but he also felt a deep sense of responsibility. If this really was humanity's first contact with another species, he wanted to make sure it went well. He didn't want to let anyone down, not his crew, not Admiral Walsh, and certainly not the billions of people counting on him back on Earth. Finally, after what felt like forever, the fleet reached the edge of the star system where the signal originated. The sight that greeted them was both beautiful and eerie. A dying star hung in the sky, its light dim and red. Around it orbited a barren planet, covered in jagged mountains and endless fields of ash. It looked like a place where nothing could survive, but the signal was still coming from somewhere on that planet. And so, with hearts pounding and minds racing, the crew of the USS Horizon prepared to land. They didn't know what they would find down there, but one thing was certain: they were about to step into the unknown. The barren planet loomed large in the windows of the USS Horizon as the crew prepared for landing. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, staring at the desolate landscape below. The ground was covered in gray ash, and jagged mountains stretched endlessly into the horizon. It looked like a place where life had never existed, let alone thrived. Yet the distress signal was coming from somewhere beneath that surface. Something or someone was down there. Doc Carter turned to his team. "We'll take a small group," he said firmly. "Rachel, Jack, Laura, you're with me." Lieutenant Rachel Monroe nodded, her hands already moving over her console to double-check their coordinates. Chief Engineer Jack Harper adjusted the straps on his equipment belt, his expression unreadable but focused. Dr. Lavra Bennett, the xenobiologist, clutched her scanner tightly, her eyes wide with anticipation. This was the moment she had dreamed of for years, the chance to make first contact with an alien species. The landing party boarded a shuttle and descended toward the planet's surface. As they approached, the wind kicked up clouds of ash, making visibility poor. The shuttle shuddered slightly as it touched down on a flat patch of ground near the source of the signal. The hatch opened and the team stepped out, their boots sinking slightly into the soft ash. The air was cold and thin, forcing them to rely on their suits' oxygen systems. Everything was eerily quiet except for the sound of their own breathing. "Inside their helmets? Let's move," Carter said, taking the lead. He held a handheld device that displayed the signal's location. They followed its guidance, walking across the ash-covered terrain until they reached what appeared to be a large mound. At first glance, it looked like a natural formation, but as they got closer, they realized it wasn't. The mound was made of smooth, metallic material, partially buried under layers of dirt and ash. "This is it," Rachel said, pointing to her scanner. "The signal's coming from underneath this." Jack knelt down and examined the structure. "It's some kind of entrance," he muttered. "Looks sealed, though." He pulled out a toolkit and began working on the mechanism. After a few minutes of tinkering, there was a low hum, and a section of the mound slid open, revealing a dark passageway leading downward. The team exchanged nervous glances. None of them knew what lay ahead, but they couldn't turn back now. Carter switched on his helmet light and stepped inside, followed by the others. The walls of the passageway were smooth and metallic, etched with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. Lavra stopped to examine them, her gloved fingers tracing the markings. "These symbols, they're fascinating," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "They remind me of ancient Earth languages, but they're completely alien." As they moved deeper into the structure, the air grew colder, and the glow from the symbols became brighter. The passageway opened into a vast chamber filled with towering machines. These machines were unlike anything they had ever seen, massive constructs with sleek designs and glowing eyes. Most of them were motionless, standing silently like statues. But one of them suddenly activated, its lights flickering to life. The machine turned its head slowly, its glowing eyes locking onto the humans. For a moment, no one moved. Then, in a deep, mechanical voice, it spoke. "You came." "Why?" The words echoed through the chamber, startling the team. Rachel instinctively raised her weapon, but Carter quickly lowered her arm. "We're here." "Because of your signal," he replied cautiously. "We heard your call for help." The machine tilted its head as if processing his response. Then, without warning, it collapsed again, its lights dimming until it was completely still. The room fell silent once more. What just happened? Jack asked, his voice tense. I don't know, Carter admitted. But we need to keep going. There's more to this place than meets the eye. Lavra stepped forward, examining the fallen machine. It's damaged, she said after a moment. Its systems are failing. That's probably why it shut down. The team continued exploring the chamber, searching for answers. In the center of the room, they found a pedestal, with a glowing orb resting on top. When Lavra approached it, the orb lit up, projecting holographic images into the air. The images showed scenes of a thriving civilization, cities filled with towering buildings, lush landscapes, and beings that looked vaguely humanoid but distinctly alien. They were the Valens, the creators of this place. The hologram shifted, showing the Valens' downfall. Their world had been ravaged by war and environmental collapse. The skies turned dark, the oceans dried up, and entire cities crumbled into ruins. In desperation, the Valens built these machines and sent out countless distress signals, hoping someone would find them and help preserve what little remained of their culture. They're gone, Lavra murmured, her voice heavy with sadness. This entire civilization wiped out. But their machines survived, Rachel pointed out. And they're still trying to communicate, Carter nodded thoughtfully. If we can repair these machines, maybe we can learn more about the Valens and their history, Jack frowned. That's easier said than done. These things are ancient. Fixing them won't be simple. Then we'd better get started, Carter said firmly. He turned to the team. Jack, see what you can do to bring these machines back online. Lavra, study those holograms. We need to understand everything we can about the Valens. Rachel, keep an eye out for anything unusual. This place might hold more surprises. The team split up, each focusing on their task. Jack worked tirelessly on the central machine, using his tools to pry open panels and rewire circuits. Sparks flew occasionally, but he didn't stop. Lavra stayed near the pedestal, analyzing the holograms and jotting down notes on her tablet. Rachel patrolled the chamber, her weapon ready. Though nothing seemed to pose an immediate threat, hours passed and progress was slow. The machines were stubborn, their systems too degraded to respond easily to Jack's efforts. Frustration began to creep in, but then something changed. With a loud whirring noise, one of the machines powered up, its eyes glowing brightly. It scanned the humans before speaking again. You are not Valen, it said in its deep, mechanical voice. No, we're not, Carter replied calmly. We're humans. We came because we received your distress signal. The machine paused as if processing this information. Humans, new species. You seek knowledge? Yes, Carter said. We want to learn about the Valens and their story. Can you help us? The machine hesitated, then nodded slightly. Data. Preserved. Core intact. Restore core. Unlock archives. Jack looked up from his work. It's talking about the central system, he explained. If we can fix it, we might be able to access everything they left behind. Then that's our next step, Carter said. Let's focus on repairing the core. The team redoubled their efforts, working together to restore power to the central system. It was a difficult and painstaking process, requiring all of their skills and patience. At times, it felt like they were fighting against the decay of time itself. But slowly, piece by piece, the system began to come back online. As the core powered up, the chamber transformed. The glowing symbols on the walls brightened, and more holograms appeared, filling the room with images of the Valens' past. The machines around them stirred to life, their eyes glowing softly as they observed the humans. We're doing it, Lavra said, her voice filled with awe. We're bringing them back. But as the core stabilized, a sudden alarm blared. Through the chamber, one of the machines emitted a warning. Instability detected, system failure imminent. What's happening? Rachel demanded, raising her weapon again. The core's too damaged, Jack shouted over the noise. It can't handle the load. Carter acted quickly. Everyone stand back. Jack, shut it down before it overloads. Jack rushed to the control panel, his hands flying over the buttons. Just as the alarm reached its peak, the core powered down, plunging the chamber into silence once more. The machines froze in place, their lights dimming. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Carter broke the silence. "Good work, Jack. We almost lost it." Jack wiped sweat from his brow. "Yeah, but we're not done yet. That core needs major repairs. If we want to access the full archive, we'll figure it out," Carter said confidently. "One step at a time." As the team regrouped, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the brink of something extraordinary. The Valens were gone, but their legacy lived on in this place. And now it was up to humanity to uncover the truth and decide what to do with it. The chamber was quiet again, but the tension in the air was thick. The team stood around the central core, its lights flickering faintly as if it were struggling to stay alive. Jack Harper wiped his hands on his suit and sighed. "This thing is ancient," he muttered. "It's a miracle it even powered up at all." Captain Daniel Carter nodded, his expression serious. "We've come this far. We can't give up now." He turned to Lavra Bennett, who had been studying the holograms projected by the pedestal. "Lavra, what have you learned so far?" Lavra looked up from her tablet, her eyes wide with excitement and sadness. "The Valens were incredible," she began. "They were advanced far beyond us in some ways. Their technology allowed them to terraform planets, create sustainable energy sources, and explore deep into space. But they also made mistakes. Their wars destroyed their planet, and their greed drained its resources. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late." Rachel Monroe stepped closer, her weapon still slung over her shoulder. "So they built these machines to preserve their legacy? To ask for help after they were gone?" LeVar nodded. "Exactly. These machines were designed to maintain their archives and send out distress signals. They hoped someone would find them and carry on their story, or maybe even learn from their mistakes." Carter crossed his arms, thinking deeply. "If that's true, then we owe it to them to finish what we started. Jack, how long will it take to repair the core fully?" Jack frowned, glancing at the damaged machinery. "A lot longer than I'd like. Some of the parts are completely fried, and others are so old they might fall apart if I touch them. But if I can jury-rig a few components, I think I can stabilize it enough to access the archives." "Do it," Carter said firmly. "We'll stay here and support you however we need to." With that, Jack got back to work. He moved carefully, dismantling sections of the core and replacing broken pieces with tools and spare parts from his kit. The rest of the team did their best to assist. Rachel kept watch near the entrance, ensuring no surprises came their way. Lavra stayed close to Jack, feeding him information about the Valen technology based on the holograms she had studied as the hours dragged on. The team grew weary. The cold seeped through their suits, and the dim light from the glowing symbols cast eerie shadows on the walls. But they pushed forward, driven by the weight of what they were doing. This wasn't just a mission anymore, it was a responsibility. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jack leaned back and exhaled. "That should do it," he said, wiping his forehead. "Let's see if it works." He pressed a button on the control panel, and the core hummed to life. This time the sound was steady and strong, without the alarming whirring or sparks from before. The glowing symbols on the walls brightened, and the holograms returned, filling the chamber with vivid images of the Valen's world, the machines. Around them stirred, their eyes glowing softly as they observed the humans. One of the larger machines approached the group, its movements slow but deliberate. It stopped in front of Captain Carter and spoke in its deep, mechanical voice. "Core. Restored archives unlocked." Carter exchanged a glance with his team. "Can you show us everything?" he asked. The machine tilted its head slightly. "Affirmative." Proceeding, suddenly the holograms changed. What had been fragmented images of the Valen's past became a detailed narrative, showing their rise and fall in stunning clarity. The team watched as the Valens built towering cities, explored distant stars, and created wonders that defied imagination. But they also saw the darker side of their history, the wars, the exploitation of resources, the destruction of their environment. It was a cautionary tale, one that hit uncomfortably close to home. Lavara stared at the projections, her heart heavy. "They were so much like us," she whispered. "Their brilliance brought them great achievements, but their flaws led to their downfall." Rachel shook her head. "It's scary how similar it feels. Earth isn't perfect, but we still have time to fix our mistakes. Maybe that's why they sent out their signal to warn others not to follow the same path." Carter nodded thoughtfully. "Or maybe they wanted someone to carry on where they left off. Either way, this changes things." The machine interrupted their thoughts. "Archives complete. Additional data available upon request." "What kind of additional data?" Carter asked. "Scientific knowledge," the machine replied. "Technological advancements, cultural records, all preserved for preservation or continuation." Jack let out a low whistle. "That's a lot of information. If we bring this back to Earth, it could change everything." "It could," Carter agreed, "but we have to be careful. Knowledge this powerful could be dangerous in the wrong hands." Lavra stepped forward, her voice firm. "We can't ignore it. This is a chance to learn from another species, to grow and improve ourselves. If we turn away, we're no better than the Valens who caused their own destruction." Carter looked at his team, weighing their words. Finally, he turned back to the machine. "We'll take the data," he said, "but only if you trust us to use it wisely." The machine paused, its glowing eyes dimming slightly. Then it responded, "Trust granted." Data transfer initiated. The pedestal at the center of the chamber lit up, and streams of information began downloading onto Laura's tablet. She watched in awe as file after file appeared, each one containing centuries of knowledge. The team stood in silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were witnessing. When the transfer was complete, the machine spoke again. "Mission fulfilled. Legacy secured," Carter nodded solemnly. "Thank you. You've given us something precious. We won't waste it." The machine bowed its massive frame slightly, then turned and walked back to its position among the others. Its lights dimmed, and it went silent once more. The team gathered their equipment and prepared to leave the chamber. As they made their way back to the surface, they couldn't help but reflect on what they had discovered. The Valens were gone, but their story lived on, not just in the machines they left behind, but in the lessons they had shared. Back on the shuttle, Carter addressed his team. "We've done something extraordinary today," he said. "But our job isn't over yet. When we return to the fleet, we'll have to decide what to do with this knowledge." "It's a gift, but it's also a responsibility," Lavar nodded. "I agree. We can't keep this to ourselves. Humanity needs to hear the Valen's story." Jack smiled faintly. "And maybe, just maybe, we can avoid making the same mistakes." They did. As the shuttle lifted off the surface of the barren planet, the crew of the USS Horizon felt a mix of emotions, sadness, and hope. They had uncovered a piece of the universe's history, and now it was up to them to ensure it wasn't forgotten. When they reached the fleet, Admiral Corinne Walsh awaited their report. Through a secure video link, Carter explained everything they had found: the Valen's rise and fall, their machines, and the vast archive of knowledge. Walsh listened intently, her expression unreadable. "This is unprecedented," she said. "Finally, you've brought back something that could reshape humanity's future, but it comes with risks. We'll need to handle this carefully." "We understand, ma'am," Carter replied. "But we believe it's worth it. The Valens entrusted us with their legacy." "It's our duty to honor that," Walsh nodded slowly. "Very well. Prepare your full report. Once we're back on Earth, we'll convene a council to discuss next steps." As the fleet set course for home, the crew of the USS Horizon knew their journey was far from over. They had answered the call of a dying civilization, and now they carried its hopes and dreams with them. Whether humanity was ready for such a gift remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the day Earth's fleet responded to an alien SOS would never be forgotten. The journey back to Earth was long and quiet. The crew of the USS Horizon spent most of their time reflecting on what they had discovered on the barren planet. The Valen story weighed heavily on their minds, a mix of awe and responsibility that none of them could shake. Captain Daniel Carter often found himself staring out the window at the endless void of space, thinking about the choices ahead. What would humanity do with the knowledge they had brought back? Would it inspire progress or spark conflict? Dr. Lavra Bennett spent hours poring over the data stored on her tablet. It was overwhelming entire libraries of scientific discoveries, engineering blueprints and cultural records from a civilization that had vanished centuries ago. She marveled at how advanced the Valens were, yet she couldn't ignore the parallels between their mistakes and humanity's current struggles. She knew this information could change the world, but she also feared how people might misuse it. Chief Engineer Jack Harper worked tirelessly in the ship's lab, trying to understand the technology behind the Valen machines. He was fascinated by their design and hoped to learn enough to improve Earth's own systems. But even he admitted that some of the concepts were beyond his grasp. "It's like looking at a puzzle with pieces missing," he told Rachel Monroe one evening. "We can see the picture, but we don't know if we're ready to put it together." Rachel, meanwhile, kept a close eye on the fleet's sensors. Though they were far from the Valen planet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone might be watching them. Her instincts had kept her alive during dangerous missions before, and now they were telling her to stay alert. She didn't voice her concerns to the others. Instead, she quietly monitored every signal and scan, searching for anything unusual. As the days turned into weeks, Admiral Karen Walsh checked in regularly through video links. She wanted updates on the Valen data and assurances that the crew was prepared for whatever came next. "This isn't just your mission anymore," she reminded them during one call. "It belongs to all of humanity now. Handle it carefully." When the fleet finally entered Earth's orbit, the mood shifted. The crew gathered on the bridge, gazing down at their home planet, a blue and green jewel floating in the vastness of space. It felt good to be back, but there was no denying the weight of what they carried with them. They weren't just returning as explorers. They were ambassadors of a lost civilization. Admiral Walsh greeted them personally when they docked. She wasted no time assembling a council of scientists, politicians, and military leaders to review the Valen archives. The meeting took place in a secure facility deep underground, where the data could be studied without fear of leaks or interference. Lavra presented her findings first, explaining the rise and fall of the Valens in simple terms. They were brilliant, she said, showing holographic projections of their cities and achievements. But they destroyed themselves because they couldn't balance progress with responsibility. Their wars drained their resources, and their greed poisoned their environment. In the end, they tried to preserve their legacy by building these machines and sending out their distress signals. The room fell silent as the council absorbed her words. Some looked inspired, while others seemed uneasy. One scientist raised his hand hesitantly. "What kind of knowledge are we talking about here? Could it really help us avoid making the same mistakes?" Lavra nodded. "Absolutely. Their advancements in energy production, medicine, and environmental restoration could revolutionize our society. But it's not just about technology, it's about mindset. If we learn from their failures, we can build a better future." Another council member, a politician named Mr. Edwards, frowned. "And what about security risks? This kind of power could destabilize governments or fall into the wrong hands. Are we prepared for that?" Captain Carter stepped forward. "That's why we're here, to make sure this knowledge is used wisely. The Valens trusted us with their legacy. We owe it to them and to ourselves to honor that trust." The discussion continued late into the night, with opinions divided. Some argued that the data should be shared openly with the world, while others believed it should remain classified until safeguards could be put in place. Admiral Walsh listened carefully to both sides before making her decision. "For now," she announced, "we'll limit access to the archives. Only a select group of experts will study the data under strict supervision. Once we've assessed the risks and benefits, we'll decide how much to share with the public." The council agreed, though tensions remained high. Over the following weeks, teams of scientists and engineers began analyzing the Valen knowledge. Progress was slow, but promising. New technologies emerged, offering solutions to problems humanity had struggled with for decades. Renewable energy sources became more efficient, medical treatments improved, and plans for environmental restoration gained momentum, but not everyone was pleased. News of the discovery leaked to the media, sparking debates across the globe. Some celebrated the breakthrough, calling it a turning point in human history. Others criticized the secrecy, accusing the government of hoarding power. Protests erupted in major cities, demanding transparency and equal access to the Valen knowledge. Amid the chaos, Lavara published a report summarizing her research. Titled Lessons from the Stars, it highlighted the Valen's achievements and warned of their mistakes. The report became an instant sensation, inspiring millions to think critically about humanity's path forward. Schools included it in their curriculums, and community groups organized discussions around its themes. Despite the controversy, the crew of the USS Horizon remained focused on their mission. They participated in interviews, gave lectures, and answered questions from curious citizens. Captain Carter emphasized the importance of unity, urging people to work together rather than fight over the new discoveries. "We have a chance to rewrite our story," he said during one speech. "The Valens showed us what happens when we let greed and division destroy us. But they also showed us what's possible when we dream big and act responsibly. Let's choose the better path." His words resonated deeply, helping to ease some of the tension. Slowly but surely, humanity began to embrace the lessons of the Valens. Governments collaborated on global projects, businesses adopted sustainable practices, and individuals made small changes in their daily lives. The knowledge brought challenges, but it also brought hope. Back aboard the USS Horizon, the crew reflected on their role in shaping the future. They had set out on a mission to investigate a mysterious signal and ended up carrying the hopes of two civilizations. Though they couldn't predict what lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: the day Earth's fleet responded to an alien SOS had changed everything. As the ship prepared for its next voyage, Captain Carter stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars. He thought about the Valens and their machines, still standing guard on that distant planet. Somewhere out there, their legacy lived on, not just in the data they had left behind, but in the hearts and minds of those who had answered their call. And so, humanity took its first steps toward a brighter future, guided by the echoes of a civilization that had reached for the stars and fallen. Months had passed since the crew of the USS Horizon returned to Earth with the Valen archives. The world was still buzzing with excitement and uncertainty about the discovery. People talked about it everywhere in homes, schools, workplaces, and even on the streets. Some saw it as a miracle, a chance for humanity to rise above its flaws. Others viewed it with suspicion, worried about the unknown consequences of such powerful knowledge. Despite the debates, one thing was clear: the Valen's legacy had left an indelible mark. Captain Daniel Carter watched the news reports from his office aboard the Horizon. He had been invited to countless interviews and conferences, but he preferred staying out of the spotlight. Instead, he spent his time reflecting on the mission and planning for the future. To him, the real work was just beginning. Humanity had taken the first step toward understanding the Valen story, but there was still much to do before their lessons could truly take root. Dr. Lavra Bennett had become a household name. Her report, Lessons from the Stars, inspired millions around the globe. She traveled extensively, speaking at universities, community centers, and international summits. Everywhere she went, people asked her the same questions. What did the Valens teach us? And how can we avoid their mistakes? Lavra answered patiently, emphasizing the importance of balance. The Valens were brilliant, she would say, but they forgot to care for their planet and each other. Their downfall wasn't just because of war or greed, it was because they lost sight of what mattered most. We have a chance to learn from them. Let's not waste it. Her words resonated deeply, especially among younger generations. Students began studying the Valen's history alongside human achievements, drawing parallels between past and present. Environmental groups used the Valen story to push for stronger conservation efforts. while scientists worked tirelessly to implement new technologies based on the alien designs. Slowly, society started shifting in meaningful ways. Chief Engineer Jack Harper played a key role in this transformation. After returning to Earth, he joined a team of engineers tasked with adapting Valen technology for human use. It wasn't easy. Many of the concepts were so advanced that they seemed almost magical. But Jack thrived on the challenge, often spending long nights in the lab tinkering with prototypes. One of his proudest accomplishments was developing a new type of energy generator inspired by the Valen's sustainable methods. When tested, it proved far more efficient than anything currently in use. "This could change everything," Jack told Captain Carter during one of their meetings. "Imagine powering entire cities without harming the environment. Imagine giving everyone access to clean energy, no matter where they live." Carter smiled. "That's exactly why we're doing this. You've done good work, Jack." Lieutenant Rachel Monroe also found herself changed by the mission. Though she continued her duties as communications officer, she became more interested in diplomacy. She studied the Valen's approach to conflict resolution, hoping to apply those lessons to human interactions. Her insights helped improve relations between nations, fostering cooperation rather than competition. For Rachel, the mission had been more than just a technical success. It was a reminder of how interconnected all life truly was. As the months turned into a year, the effects of the Valen discovery spread across every corner of Earth. Cities adopted greener practices, businesses prioritized sustainability, and governments worked together on projects that once seemed impossible. Even small towns embraced the changes, planting trees, reducing waste, and teaching children about responsibility. Humanity was far from perfect, but progress was undeniable. Admiral Karen Walsh oversaw the global effort, ensuring that the Valen knowledge was used wisely. She established strict guidelines to prevent misuse, requiring transparency and accountability at every level. While some criticized her cautious approach, most agreed it was necessary. "We can't afford another mistake like the Valens made," she said during a press conference. "This isn't just about technology, it's about values. If we don't get that right, nothing else matters." Despite the challenges, the mission brought unity to a fractured world. People who had never met came together to share ideas and solutions. Artists created works inspired by the Valen's culture. Musicians composed songs about their tragic fate, and writers penned stories imagining what might have been. The Valens were gone, but their presence lingered in countless ways. One day, Captain Carter received a message from Admiral Walsh. "It's time," she said simply. "The Council has decided to send a delegation back to the Valen planet. We want to leave something behind, a monument to honor their legacy." Carter nodded thoughtfully. "I think that's a good idea. They trusted us with their story. The least we can do is show our gratitude." The crew of the USS Horizon volunteered immediately. Together with a team of architects, artists, and engineers, they traveled back to the barren planet. When they arrived, the machines greeted them warmly, recognizing the humans who had restored their core. The team set to work constructing a memorial near the entrance to the underground chamber. It was a simple yet elegant structure, made of reflective materials that caught the dim light of the dying star. Engraved on its surface were messages in both English and the Valen's language. "In memory of a civilization that reached for the stars, may their legacy guide us forward." When the monument was complete, the crew gathered around it in silence. Each member placed a hand on its cool surface, feeling a deep sense of connection to the Valens. Though they had never met these beings, they felt as though they knew them, their hopes, their struggles, and their dreams. Captain Carter stepped forward to speak. "This isn't goodbye," he said softly. "Your story lives on through us. We won't forget you." The machines observed quietly, their glowing eyes dimming slightly as if in mourning. Then one of them spoke, "Legacy preserved, trust honored." With that, the crew boarded the shuttle and returned to the fleet. As they lifted off the surface of the planet, they looked back at the monument shining faintly in the distance. It was a small gesture, but it carried immense meaning. Humanity had taken the first steps toward a brighter future, Guided by the echoes of a civilization that had fallen but never truly disappeared. Back on Earth, life continued to evolve. The Valens' influence touched every aspect of society, from science and politics to art and philosophy. Their story became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of failure, there was always a chance to begin again. And though the universe remained vast and mysterious, humanity now felt less alone. For Captain Carter and his crew, the mission had been more than just a job. It had been a journey of discovery, not just of alien worlds, but of themselves. They had faced danger, doubt, and uncertainty, but they had emerged stronger and wiser. As they prepared for their next adventure, they knew one thing for certain. The day Earth's fleet responded to an alien, SOS would forever be remembered as a turning point in human history, and so humanity moved forward carrying the Valens' legacy with pride and purpose. Their voices may have been silenced, but their message endured, a beacon of hope shining brightly among the stars.